All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on lesson 21, module 5, and what we're going to be doing today is we're using visual models again to add two fractions that have a related denominator. Not the same, but they're related, with either a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, or 12. What I'd like you to do first is I'd like you to write these fractions down, then create two tape models to represent each of those. Remember, the tape models must be the same length, one on top of the other. Pause while you do this. You should have gotten something like this: 3 out of 4 pieces shaded, 3 out of 8 pieces shaded. What I did is I made my fourths first on both of them so they were equivalent, and then I cut this one into eighths. So now we have to ask ourselves, what do 4 and 8 have in common? And we know that 4 and 8 have 8 in common, because if I count by 4s, I say 4 and then I say 8. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to decompose our fourths into eighths. And determine how much we have now so we can add them together. So if we count them up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't forget to compose your last one, 7, 8. So 6 out of 8. So this 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8, which you knew because 4 times 2 is 8, 3 times 2 is 6. Then I can actually add them together. So lay that out so you can add it together. You should have come up with 9/8. What we're going to do now is we're going to turn this into a mixed fraction. We've been doing this. Take out your whole, your part, and show me your mixed number. Pause while you do it. Here's what you should have gotten. You should have pulled out your whole, which is 8/8. What's left out of 9 is 1/8, because 8 plus 1 is 9. And 8/8 is a whole plus your 1/8. I want to do this entire process solving for these two. 2/5 plus 7/10. I will break it down piece by piece. You can work the whole thing out before you play again. Go ahead and pause while you do this whole thing for these two fractions. Pause. Here's what your tape model should look like. Here's what it looks like when I split my fifths into tenths, because it just takes times 2 to get to 10. So I cut each of my fifths in half to get me 4/10. When I added them together, I had 11/10. And there's my number bond. Take out my whole. 10/10 is a whole. 10 from 11, there's 1 left. 10 plus 1 is 11. I now have 11/10, which gives me a whole and 1/10. The next thing I want you to do is you're going to add 1/2 plus 7/8, and we're going to do it on a number line. So here's the hard part. Am I going to make my endpoints 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 0 to 2? What will I do? Well, I know that a half is going to fall between 0 and 1. 7/8 is more than a half, so I think that we're going to be over 1. So my suggestion is to go from 0 to 2, midline 1. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to cut each of these in half first and plot your 1/2. Please pause while you do that. Hopefully yours looks like mine. You had a halfway between 0 and 1, and 1 1/2 between 1 and 2. I marked my half. So now I need to do is I need to cut my number line into eighths. In order to do that, I'm going to change my color so that you guys can really see it, but I'm also going to make them dotted. So in order to cut it into eighths, I have to cut it each into fourths first. So each 0 to 1, 1 to 2, each one into fourths first, and then each into half. And go ahead and pause while you do this and see if you can cut fourths, then eighths in each grouping of 1. Pause. Yours should look a little bit like this, or actually a lot like this. What I did is I cut each into fourths first, and then I cut each whole into a half, or into eighths rather. So now I'm going to hop 7/8. So if I start at my 1/2, I go 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. I should have ended up here. Now if that's the case, what I would see here is I would see that I'm right before 1.5. So I would count up by eighths because it's not landing on one of my whole marks or my half marks. So let's start here. 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, 8/8, 9/8, 10/8, 11/8. 11/8 should be that point. You could double check this by turning a half into an equivalent fraction. Then equaled eighths. How do I get from 2 to 8? Well, I go times 4. What do I do to the bottom? I do to the top. 1 times 4 is 4. 4/8 plus 7/8 equals 11/8. Please break that down into a mixed number. You should have taken out your whole, which is 8/8. What's left out of 11? 3 more, because 8 plus 3 is 11. 8/8 is a whole. 3/8 is my leftover. That is my mixed number. We're going to do the same thing again. 5/6 plus 2/3. We're going to use a number line, and we're going to figure out what I'm going to go to for one of my endpoints. Well, 5/6 is almost a whole, so I know I'm going to end up at least at 2 wholes, or more than 1. So I'm going to do my 0 to 2 again. Midline is 1. Remember, this is a whole. First, we're going to go a little bit easier. We're going to cut into thirds first. Each whole cut into thirds, and please mark 2/3. Pause while you do it. You'll notice I did not mark my half and 1.5 points because I was dealing with thirds and 6. I didn't want to mess myself up. I didn't put those halves in there. So I had divided each whole into thirds, each whole into thirds. I found 2/3 and I plotted it. Now in order to find 6, I'm going to have to cut each of my wholes into 6. Well, they're already cut into thirds. We know 3 is half of 6, so we're just going to cut it in each third in half. This one's actually a little bit easier than the last one. So it's only 1 cut. So now I'm going to add a 5/6. So here's my 5/6. Make sure you've cut these. Here's my 5/6. Let's hump to count up our 6. 1 6, 2 6, 3 6, 4 6, 5 6. So I land right there. I am not on a third mark. I'm on one of my 6. So I'll have to count up by 6 to find out where we are. Well, I'm already at a whole, so that makes it pretty easy. So we know a whole would be how many 6? 6 6. Or 3/3, but we're dealing with 6, so we want to count our 6. 6 6, 7 6, 8 6, 9 6. 9 6 is what we're thinking our answer is. Well, let's double check to make sure. I'm going to write here plus 5 6 so we know what we did. We're going to get a common denominator. I know that 3 works with 6 quite nicely, timesing 2. So let's turn our thirds into 6. How do I get from 3 to 6? Times 2. What do I do to the bottom? You do to the top. 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm really adding up 5 6 plus 4 6. And what does that equal? 9 6. Go ahead and take 9 6 and turn it into a mixed number. Pause. Here's what you should have come up with. You took out your whole, 6 6. What was left from 9? was 3, 6, because 6 and 3 is 9. Bring down my whole, bring down my 3 6. Well, I know 3 is half of 6, so I could have said 1 1/2 or 1 3/6. So my answer is indeed correct using my number line. So you have found a couple of different ways you can do it. You can use a tape model and divide as necessary, finding that common denominator. You can use a number line, or you can use the multiplication to find that common denominator. I don't care which process you use. Please practice each one just a little bit on your problem set. Go ahead and find a partner. Good luck.